Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, 3 Killer Strategies for Driving Mobile Conversion, sponsored by Invoca and presented together with SunTrust Bank. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Gagan. I'm the Content Studio Coordinator here at Digiday, and I will be your host for today. In just a few moments, we'll be joined by Kyle Christensen, VP of Marketing at Invoca. Kyle is a SaaS veteran, having spent over 15 years working in enterprise software. Before Invoca, Kyle was VP of Marketing at Responses, a leading cloud platform for cross-channel digital marketing, where he launched the company's mobile product line and drove the growth of the enterprise business up until the company's acquisition by Oracle for $1.5 billion. He holds an MBA from the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley and a BS in Engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. We'll also be joined by Brenny Conkle, VP of Digital Acquisition and Capabilities at SunTrust Bank. Brenny is currently leading initiatives to align the customer experience throughout their digital ecosystem, which includes the build-out of Adobe Audience Manager, SunTrust DMP, and Invoca, SunTrust Call Intelligent Platform. She has over 15 years of experience in marketing, mainly in digital marketing, lead generation, and capability build. Brenny received her bachelor's degree in political science and communications from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Together, we'll discuss the role of call conversions in an omni-channel marketing strategy. We'll get into how SunTrust uses real conversations to establish trust with their customers. And then we'll get into the 3 killer tactics for converting mobile users. A question and answer period will follow our presentation, so please stay through to the end. Feel free to submit questions at any time via our chat interface. And at some point tomorrow, you'll all receive an email with a link to the recording of the webinar, just in case you miss anything or you want to share it with your peers. So without further ado, let's get started. Kyle, Brenny, take it away.
Great, thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody, for spending time with us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're calling in from. And Brenny, thanks as always for helping us out today. We've got some fantastic content to go through. We're going to touch on a few things. We're going to touch on why in this world where we're all thinking mobile first, why phone calls matter and how they play a role. Brenny's going to walk through what SunTrust is doing. They're one of the really leading digital marketers out there, and they've done just a fantastic job of integrating calls and conversations into everything digital. And then I'm going to go through 3 specific tactics you can use to actually help boost sales that we see being put into play by all of our other customers. So Joe did a great job with introductions. We won't spend too much time here, but in case you're wondering what we look like, that's me, that's Brenny. First things first, the context for why this matters is that the world we're living in today is, if you're on this call, you should be aware of this. It's all about being omni-channel marketers, delivering that one-to-one customer journey, and doing it in the context of a mobile world where most of the digital interactions we have are taking place on mobile devices. This is what today's path to purchase looks like. It's totally evolved from where it was just a few short years ago. 90% of us are now moving not just across channels, but across devices to accomplish our goals. As we perhaps do a search on our cell phones as we're riding the bus on the way to work, to grabbing our iPads while we're sitting on the couch and doing some more research, and then maybe ultimately arriving in front of a desktop computer to make a purchase. This is the state of marketing today. That's why it's myself as a marketer, I find it's one of the most exciting times. The options we have, the tools we have to embrace this journey are so prolific. It's just an exciting time to be there. It's given rise, this new journey has given rise to a term that's really risen in popularity over the last couple of years. It's omni-channel marketing. And in a nutshell, I really enjoyed this quote from the head of customer care at Time Warner Cable. So the omni-channel is really viewing the experience through the eyes of your customer, orchestrating that experience across all channels so it's seamless, integrated, and consistent. So gone is the days of mass campaigns and the Monday morning email blast. Instead, it's about thinking about that individual's path to purchase. And so, if this is the mission that we're all trying to solve for today, really mobile devices have become the battlefield. As I mentioned, the journey has totally evolved. If you think back, not very long ago, 1995, only 1% of the global population had even heard of or were using smartphones. Today, it's kind of amazing. Not even today, 2014, 5.2 billion mobile phone users on the planet. 73% of the global population are actually using smartphones out there, which is really amazing. And we get this as marketers. We understand that mobile has taken over search, for example. Last year, Google announced that there are more mobile searches on Google than there are desktop searches. It's taking over display advertising. Mobile spend in display advertising is growing at 3x the rate of desktop spend. Long time ago, several years ago, mobile email opens overtook desktop opens, And even in social, if you look at where Facebook's revenue is coming from, 100% of the revenue growth is coming from mobile. So the interesting thing is that consumer behavior actually changes once you get on mobile devices as well. It's not just marketers' behavior. There was a fantastic article from the gentleman who runs all search product at Google. This guy spent a year of his life living without a laptop, living without a desktop computer, and tried to do everything on his mobile device. And he calls it his year of living mobile first. And this is one of his realizations. He said, I realized on mobile devices, I wanted to act more. The balance between acting and consuming has shifted toward acting as in calling a business. That's the most simple form of acting. And we see that time and time again. The data plays this out. The number of phone calls to businesses because of this migration to mobile is set to double from a place where it was about 80 billion in 2014 up to 160 billion phone calls by 2019. So this is a pattern we see again and again, and it's largely because of the form factor of the device itself. It's so much more easier rather than having a long drawn out back and forth email conversation or trying to fill out a web form with 20 different fields with your thumbs on a mobile device. Far easier to simply tap a call button and have a live conversation with a person. And we see consumers wanting to do that, wanting to engage in conversation for the most important interactions that happen in their lives. Invoca commissioned a survey in 2015 of about 2,000 consumers, and we asked them, when certain events happen in your lives, what are you most likely to do? Are you most likely to send an email to tell somebody about it, to send a text message, to post it on social, or to call and have a conversation? And what we found is, a little bit surprisingly, that time and time again, for those most important interactions, you win the lottery, you get engaged, you're announcing a pregnancy, you get hired or you get fired. Time and time again, people still defer to conversation and phone calls as being the primary mechanism for sharing that information, secondary turning to digital. And we see that same trend actually playing out in business. It's a little bit surprising, but Google did a survey and they asked people, of the path to purchase that you undertake when you're using a Google product like Google Search, you go from research to discovery to research to purchase. What's the most important step? And surprisingly, 61% of searchers say that the phone call is actually the most important step. Not the search, not the mobile optimized website, but that live conversation that you have with the business in order to quickly get an answer or to talk to a real person or to get more accurate information that you can find from other sources or just because it's convenient. We actually did a similar survey at Invoca, and we asked people over the last 3 months, which of the following activities have you done on a mobile device? Is it A, filled out a form, or B, use your mobile device to have a conversation with a business? And the results were very similar to what Google found. 3 to 1, people have more likely to have had a conversation with a business than used it on a mobile device than use it to fill out a web form. Now, the question we often get as soon as people see this data is, yeah, like I buy that. That's probably all the old folks in the room, though, right? What about millennials? Millennials are digital natives. They're certainly not engaging in this behavior, right? Well, so we asked that question, and we said, hey, millennials, specifically for that demographic, which have you done in the past 3 months? Have you engaged on social with a specific brand, or have you had a conversation? And the data was almost identical. It was still 3 to 1. So the reality is that if you're a digital marketer and you're thinking mobile first, one of the most important interactions you can have is not just the digital discovery where you're browsing with clicks, but it's the actual purchase point. It's the phone call. We see that phone calls convert on an average of 20 to 30% as opposed to about a 1 to 2% conversion rate of traditional digital leads. Now, the struggle that marketers actually run into is that they've got the digital part dialed in, right? We've invested in bid management, in email service providers, in display retargeting, in website personalization, in social marketing. We probably have marketing cloud technology that's tying all those things together so you can measure and automate the customer journey as someone bounces between each of those interactions. The breakdown happens when somebody decides that at any point in that digital journey, they're actually going to jump off and place a phone call to have that conversation. Really similar to the picture of the gal you see on the right there, browsing digitally and then engaging in a conversation to actually make a purchase. And when that happens, you often lose the thread. You don't know who that customer is, why they're calling, which campaign drove that conversation, what your ROI was, or what should be the next step in that digital path to purchase. And so the tee up for really the conversation today and the content we're going to share with you is that if you are thinking mobile first, if you are thinking about really becoming an omni-channel organization, it's really not possible to do without taking into account that all-important conversation. So with that set up, what I want to do is introduce Brenny Conkle. Brenny is just as the VP of Digital Acquisition and Capabilities at SunTrust. They've been a long-time Invoca customer, and I've been so impressed in seeing what they've been able to do, not just on the digital side, but how they've integrated conversation and phone calls into the journey. So with that, Brenny, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Kyle. So, as Kyle mentioned, I do work for SunTrust Bank. We are one of the nation's largest banks, but we are mainly based in the Southeast, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. And we really focus on consumer as well as the commercial space as well. So we do have most of our branches located in the Southeast. However, we do marketing for mortgage and for other lines of business, especially our commercial bank, outside that footprint. We've started our journey, I guess, a couple of years ago, and we realized that we had some significant problems and challenges, rather. Evolving to a more digital presence, I joined doing paid search, or just trying to do paid search, and we realized quickly that the whole world is changing. Mobile was into play. We were only doing paid search on desktop. So we really started to try to figure out how could we get on mobile when we didn't have the ideal experience for that customer in that mode. So that was really what kind of led us to Invoca. And we were trying to make sure not only, hey, we definitely want to be on mobile, but how can we measure it? How can we understand what the value is? If we're going to get on a mobile and do click to call, what's the value for us? How can we measure that? And that's where we really found Invoca to be the right partner for us, because not only could we, look at paid search and identify where the keywords, which is important, but we could also really tie it into our back-end systems, our CRM, and make sure that we were driving value for the entire organization. So as you'll see, a good chunk of our business, and this is from our mortgage space, we do have call number. It's very prevalent. That's one of the biggest actions we actually want our customers to take, is call us or go and find somebody. We really want to talk to you. 75% of our business is really based on that conversation. The other piece of that is forms. People just wanting to fill out a form and get more information, have somebody call them later, but it's all based on a conversation. We really see with our marketing, especially for our mortgage side, where we're very heavily personal touch. We want to make sure we're getting you the right loan for you, making sure we've got the right presence, coverage that you need, and we're not just willy-nilly sending you a loan and saying, oh, yes, we think you'd get the 30-year, that would be the best for you, without really understanding your circumstances. That's really what our proposition is. And we see that, we get a lot more return from our calls than our forms. And a majority of our customers right now are still desktop, but we're seeing a huge shift, and even the 1/3 now, actually we're seeing that grow really month over month, and having more calls come from mobile for us in this space. We also have been able to add things like all of our campaigns that we do with online advertising. We're really able to attribute those phone calls not only to the creative, but also to the keyword provider, which is hugely important. So as you see here, this is one of those examples where we had mortgage actually out there. We had Realtor.com. We had ads there. We also had ads on the Knot. And this really helped us identify. I could once they got to this landing page, I could tell which creative they came from, and so we could prepare a little bit better. They're likely to be a first-time home buyer from the Knot, as opposed to being on Realtor.com, where we don't know exactly where you are. So it helps us kind of determine what kind of journey we want to give you. Obviously, we use other analytics and other data, but that really helps us understand a little bit more about our customer as well as having the understanding of where they were coming from and where we can attribute those clicks in those phone calls from. That's been a huge, important piece of our journey. Another thing that's really been important is really looking at this lovely page that we have here. You'll see we have a lot of different calls to actions. And we've replaced some of the numbers, but we still have a large number, especially for our small business accounts, and a lot of those accounts that we really want to have more conversation around loans and those kinds of products. So we definitely have been using Invoca to even complex pages like this. We're able to track exactly where those clicks came from and attribute those and really try to help filter that into our analytics. So really understanding this has really helped us increase our efficiency with our staff levels. We're able to make sure we're sending these calls to the right venue. So if somebody's ready to open an account, we're sending those to the sales teams. They're able to address those calls. We also have, set up to go to service in the IVR to really help filter those out. That's helped us immensely be able to help our customers much better and get them to where they want to be and really start those conversations quicker with our customers. So with our paid search, I mean, this is a basic ad right here on an iPhone, but it's the same in Android, I promise. But basically, you see the ad. This one happens to be around our first-time home buyer campaign, and really trying to make sure we're maximizing our ROI. So we really look at, from our keywords, we can really determine, from our analytics, we can get down to the keyword level, like I said. I can tie that all the way through to our booked accounts, so we know which keywords are more profitable for us. We can also look at who's calling us. Do we have keywords that, for us, might look like, from a form standpoint, in our immediate optimization with our bid analytics tool, we are able to look at that and say, okay, we can add all these calls in. This actually is a higher value keyword than we thought. We don't want to cut that. We don't want to reduce our spend on those terms. We really actually want to balance that out and maybe increase that bid with our real-time bidding engine. But it helps us get a lot more holistic picture of really what's going on with our keywords, what's going on with our campaigns, and how we're able to really close that loop to generate revenue. And we're really able to make sure we're getting the most value out of our paid search programs and our online advertising campaigns, and really able to really focus on how we can optimize those campaigns and make sure we are getting the best for our dollar. As every marketer knows, those dollars don't come easily, so when we do have them, we need to be good stewards and really figure out how we can use those and maximize those. And we found that for part of us, we were losing all these calls. It was unknown, basically to a black hole. We got calls, we could track that we got calls, but after that, we had very little visibility. So Invoca has really helped us close that loop for us. So I guess one of the key takeaways for us has been, with Invoca, being able to put in the IVR in place, being able to, with all the technology that they built in, being able to get communications and let our team know, and when they're picking up the phone, that, hey, this is from the first-time homebuyer campaign versus our purchase campaign. We're really able to kind of take it to the next level. We're able to help those get our calls to the right representative. Is it a service call? Is it a sales call? Making sure, not even that it's also going to the right line of business, because my mortgage teammates don't know enough about the checking products to really help with that. So we want to make sure our customers, wherever they're coming from, however they're getting to us, are getting to the right place. And then we're really able to help with that. We've really been able to increase our call duration for our sales teams, and that's huge. That's it's 4 times as much as it was when we started this process. So we've gone from 4 minutes to 16 minutes. And that's been hugely helpful. We now have kind of a benchmark of how long we know it takes to take an application for each product. And just knowing that has given us the insight of, hey, we really are making an impact on the bottom line. Even for the lines of business we can't close the loop on fully, with our with our bookings or our accounts, but we were really able to understand a little bit better about who's on the phone, how long they're on the phone, what they're on the phone for, and making sure they're getting to the right place. And we know, we talked to the call centers and we were getting that good feedback of, hey, this is really working for us and this is a much better process. And they feel like they really are taking more applications and able to close those sales much more efficiently now. So that's been a big help in our transition. So with that.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's been great to see the progress and the journey that you guys have made, Brenny. I do think we're going to save time at the end for Q&A. So this is my opportunity to remind everybody, if you've got questions, feel free to start feeding them in and we'll start picking them off. So if you want to know more about anything that SunTrust is doing, we can catch up with that at the end. What I wanted to do in the meantime is just run through 3 specific tactics that we see our using to really drive more optimized mobile marketing campaigns by taking into account conversations and phone calls. So quick wins for folks who aren't thinking about calls yet. These are 3 really easy things to think about doing. The first is web optimization. And so I'm going to share this tip in the context of another Invoca customer, a company called Vivint. Vivint does smart home automation. So really cool technology that allows you to adjust your thermostat or check your security camera with your mobile device, those sorts of things. And so like SunTrust, these guys are really, really great marketers. They're measuring everything they do. And prior to thinking about phone calls, they'd optimize both their main website and their mobile website entirely around form fills. So they would say, hey, we want to drive as many people to click that request a quote button as possible. And they would run tests. And this is a live test, a real example that they ran, where they found that version B of their website actually drove 14% fewer form fills. So if that's the only data point you were looking at, you would say, like, let me take that version B and throw it out the window and never look at it again. Let's never speak of this terrible website again. It does such a poor job of driving conversions. Except that Vivint, being smart marketers that they are recognize that the other form of conversion is phone calls. And so they would see version B and say, while it drove fewer form fills, it drove almost 40% in increases in phone calls. So by putting that phone number more prominently, making the button orange instead of blue, or what have you, we're driving more calls. Let's stick with version B. So again, it's one of those examples where if you're operating without complete information, you run the risk of perhaps optimizing against your best interests. When you have complete information, you're able to make better decisions. And so they continue to make these tests, and you can see this is a live screenshot of their mobile homepage today. Calls are front and center. They give people the option to fill out a form, but you can see multiple CTAs there encouraging people to place a phone call. And that little tap to call button at the bottom there will kind of slide in and out as you're on their website. So just by making these small changes, these incremental changes with complete information, over a period of about 2 months, they were able to drive a 70% increase in call rate. So again, just by starting to measure conversions in the form of not just forms, but also calls, 70% increase in response rate over the phone in just 2 months. So really an easy win is just start testing your website for both form fills as well as phone calls. The next example is retargeting. So another one of our customers, DirecTV, they do some really interesting things. They are doing a lot of the attribution work that Brenny described. So spending lots of money on keywords and trying to optimize for satellite TV deals as the keyword, or satellite TV discounts, et cetera. So they're able to optimize their spend there. The other thing they're doing is they're accounting for the ever-present problem of cart abandonment, right, and retargeting people who maybe show interest but don't purchase. And so a common problem that they saw was that someone would load up a satellite TV package in the shopping cart on the website and then appear to abandon, right? So they would say, that's no good. Whatever ads we're driving or whatever website optimization we need to do to prevent that abandonment, let's do that. In fact, if we've got that person cookied, let's send them display ads for 20% off the satellite TV package that they abandoned. Well, turns out that was a mistake, because what was happening is those people weren't actually abandoning. What they were doing was discovering that they had a few more questions, and before they were going to sign up for a package that was a couple $100 a month, they wanted to talk to somebody. And so they would call in, they would have a conversation, and they'd say, yeah, I'm interested in that satellite TV package, by the way, also, does that include the NFL Sunday ticket or not? No, it doesn't. Okay, no problem. Let me go ahead and purchase. And so they purchase the satellite TV package, and customers might start seeing display advertisements for 20% off the package they already purchased, right? So it's a waste of money, number one. And number two, it's just a bad customer experience. And so by starting to plug a call intelligence platform in the middle there, they're able not only to drive a line between that purchase and the marketing programs and the website that drove the call, but they can also start to analyze the conversation itself. So understanding that that person not only called in from San Francisco, but that in the course of conversation, they said the words NFL Sunday ticket. That information goes into a DMP, for example, and then they can create an audience for those people and say, hey, let's start retargeting people for 20% off, not the package they already purchased, but 20% off NFL Sunday ticket, and let's have creative targeted to the region that they called in from. So a really, really smart way of thinking about using conversation to continue that customer journey. Last tactic that I'll share with you is something, again, really, really simple, which is just around email marketing. We've got too many email marketers on the line today, but my background in email marketing, this one hit home for me. One of our companies is, one of our customers is Brady Corporation. They're a big multinational B2B company. They sell signage and office equipment. And they knew they did a lot of marketing digitally on mobile devices. They were doing mobile search. They were doing mobile email. They were doing mobile optimized websites. And they also knew they were doing a ton of business over the phone, and they couldn't connect the dots. And so one of the first things they did once they started investing in call technology is just saying, let's just put trackable technology on everything we're doing. We have no idea where these phone calls are coming from. We presume it's probably search is driving a lot of it. We presume that the website is driving a lot of it. Well, it turns out that for certain brands of theirs, 38% of their inbound phone calls were coming from emails. They had no idea. So you have this email marketing team that suddenly wakes up, and that morning they're getting credit for 38% more leads than they got credit for before, which is pretty amazing. And by the way, they're also following this all the way through to revenue. So what they found is that for that same brand, phone calls are driving a third more revenue than they were getting visibility into. That's a massive way of moving the needle for your business, is understanding suddenly a third more revenue that you can have insight into what's working, what's not, and how can I optimize for that. So that's just another tip, is if you don't know where calls are coming from, start putting trackable technology anywhere you can think of, and email is a great place to start. So with that said, obviously, Invoca as a company, we've got great technology to help with all aspects of this, whether you're talking about analytics, whether you're talking about doing the automations we described, whether you're talking about integrating that data across different platforms. I've listed off a few of our customers today. We're fortunate to work with some of the best digital marketers out there. And so if you're interested in learning more, obviously, pop by our website or give us a call. Our number's on the website. With that, let's go ahead and open it up to questions.
Great. Thank you both very much for your excellent insights. Yeah, so we've got a few questions that came in here, and if anybody else has any more, feel free to just go ahead and drop them in the interface, and we'll make sure to get to them. Okay, so right off the bat here, someone asks, how are you able to match the caller to a sale?
Yeah, great question. We do it in a couple different ways. We have technologies that will integrate directly with a platform like Salesforce, for example. So if a call comes in, we automatically create leads, which get turned into opportunities with dollar values, and those closed won opportunities get synced back with Invoca as one example. We also have API connections with a lot of other point of sale platforms. So you can do it either in kind of real time via API or just simple batch reporting. You just match the phone number to the sale and upload a file to close the loop. So lots of different ways depending on the systems you're using.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, here's another one. For the email example, how do the promo numbers work? Do you need a separate tracking phone number for each email?
We have customers doing it in different ways. The easiest way to get started is by doing it at the campaign level. So you say, you might have a couple different versions of an email. We serve up a couple different phone numbers to go with each of those different versions, and then the reporting flows through. But we're working on some more advanced stuff as well that does a lot of the stuff automatically.
Excellent. Great. And here's another one. So this one might be a little bit more technical, and if you could just go into a little bit of detail about this. Someone asks, how do you get keyword level data on click-to-call ads without a GCL ID? And just for anybody here who doesn't know, can you explain what a GCL ID is?
Yeah, GCL ID is it's a parameter that that Google uses in identifying calls. It's Google Click ID is what it's called. So we've got sort of native integrations with a lot of the things that Google's doing, and so we, depending on where specifically the call is coming from, whether you're talking about a click-to-call call extension that can be from a mobile device, or a click-to-call extension that exists on a desktop, or someone clicking through to the website and making a phone call from the website, all those searches work a little bit differently, and so the way we derive the actual keyword value is going to differ depending on where that call came from. So the answer is it varies, and it's, behind the scenes, our engineers have kind of figured out the optimal way to match that keyword with the call, depending on which option that person came from.
And I would just say, I mean, for us, we use the Adobe platform, so that's helped us immensely because we're able to tag all those keywords that Google doesn't want you to know. So we can very easily tie those to our calls using analytics.
Great, thank you both very much. A question here for Brenny. What was the first or biggest optimization change you made after you guys started tracking calls with SunTrust?
So the biggest optimization change after was actually, for a little bit, we were just tracking the calls, trying to see where they were coming in. The biggest optimization change we made actually was shifting money from desktop to mobile. It originally didn't look like it was being very successful for us, partially because of our experience. But our very first change was literally shifting money because we saw that we were getting a ton of calls, and we were able to see that those were actually valuable to the businesses. So that was the very first change. The second was just to optimize the experience on mobile for our customers. That's one of the biggest kind of obstacles for us getting in is, hey, we're not quite there. But we were able to prove, hey, we need to get there faster than we thought because we're getting a lot of valuable phone calls and a lot of traction, and we want to make sure the customers have their ideal experience for viewing the offer and how they want to, and the choice and how they want to interact with us.
Great, thank you very much. A question here for you, Kyle. So it's about the platform. Does Invoca integrate with Pipedrive?
That is a great question. That's not a platform I've heard of. I know we integrate with near 50 different platforms, so that may be one. We could do some research and follow up with that specific person. In the case where we haven't integrated with a particular platform, we've invested a ton in our APIs to make it really, really easy for you to just do some minor configuration and hook into just about any other platform that does have an open API and is a modern software platform. So my guess would be that it's totally possible.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to get them in now. In the meantime, I would just like to remind everybody that you will be receiving an email with a link to the recording after the call. At some point tomorrow morning, you'll be looking for that in your inbox. So unless anyone else has any other questions, that'll just about do it for us today. Kyle and Brenny, do you guys have anything to add?
I would just say from the customer experience, being on the consumer end of Invoca, one of the best things, the technology is absolutely phenomenal, but the team really helps to make sure that you can integrate, to Kyle's point. I've not had a system yet they've come back and said, no, we can't make it work. We've also integrated this with our affiliate platform as well, and Salesforce and Adobe and multiple other integrations, and they've never said no. They figured out a way to make it happen. They've also made sure that we've had the support we've needed when we needed it. So, be it to add a lot more calls or whatever we needed, they've made sure it happened. So, it's a partnership that really works for us because they spend the time trying to make sure we're getting what we need as well. So I think that's important in a vendor, especially if you're looking at call intelligence and how it works. It's phenomenal technology, but the people are even more phenomenal.
That is so nice to hear, Brandy. Really appreciate that. I know our customer success team is a big fan of SunTrust as well and loves working with you guys. My takeaway would just be that we went through a lot of advanced examples here today, talking about automation throughout the customer journey, and some of the stuff might feel a little bit overwhelming. My advice to people is just get started with this. Like the Brady example, there's so much data out there. The first step is just understanding where calls are coming from. It's really easy to do and really easy to get started, and it's kind of a no-brainer. If you flip the imagery around and you try to imagine, hey, what would it be like if you were, put up a website today and you had no data about how people were interacting with your website? That's probably a terrifying or scary feeling, and that's kind of the place a lot of us are today around phone calls. So, the best thing to do is just start diving in and just understand the basics, and then so much data is out there that you can start to do really, really fun things once you start to get used to it. So that's my advice, is just get started with the basics and see where it ends up.
I was going to say, for us, that was one of the biggest things. I mean, we just didn't know what to do, and we were actually referred to by another vendor to Invoca, and we just really started measuring the calls, just really basic, and we've evolved, obviously, but that's, start simple and work your way into it, and you'll see value pretty instantly.
Excellent. Thank you both very much for your excellent insights throughout the course of this webinar. There was some really great stuff in here, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it as well. Again, keep an eye on your inboxes for a link to the recording. Feel free to share with your peers. And please enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.